Your country needs you. The armed forces are in the middle of a recruitment crisis, with army numbers at their lowest since the Napoleonic Wars. Meanwhile, the threats multiply from Islamic State to Russian aggression, rogue regimes like North Korea to Trump's early morning tweets, not to mention the fact that I've got T-shirts older than the new Defence Secretary. Sir Stuart Peach calls it a gathering storm. We're 4,000 soldiers short. Well, I have a suggestion. You know what it is. It would fill the gaps in the ranks, as many would stay in uniform, and it would also help inject the right stuff, pride, patriotism and the work ethic into our young men and women who'll have to work extra hard as millions of EU nationals go home after Brexit. It will help across the sectors, not just defence. It's a no-brainer. If we're going to make Britain great again and maintain our forces, yes, bring back national service.
Totally and absolutely agree with you. And I kind of have first-hand experience of this in the sense that my husband, who was Bosnian, did national service. When he was 18, you go straight from school and you go... So he went straight into the army, did 3 months in the army, then the Navy. And what he said, he was a middle-class kid who was living a very charmed life. And he said... When he joined up, he didn't realise that not every kid had the life that he had. He said, and he came across all sorts of people. He said, but the thing is, you do a uniform and everyone becomes equal. And pride, privilege, well, it doesn't matter a toss and all this. He said, and what he said is that it taught him respect, all the things you just mentioned, respect, discipline. It taught him how to give and to take orders. He said it taught him, more importantly, which I think a lot of people lack today, how to work as a team. He said people are not very good at that. He said it also taught that when you're working with men, the bond that you create, or women, but if you're on a battlefield with other guys, you learn very quickly that you're prepared to die for these people.
I'm very cheered by and warmed by what you say now. Which one
Rachel,
of you're both Chantry, which one?
Well, I
Karen.
think, Rachel, you know, what you've said, my father... and my grandfather. My father was Commander-in-Chief of the Central Indian Army with 350,000 troops under his command. I think in an ideal world, I mean, this country has had national service in the past. Yes. My wife is South African. They had national service. My brother-in-law served in the army. It's a very good thing for all the reasons you've said. However, however is this. In today's world, it is a utopian idea for a country like ours, and I'll tell you why. At the moment, our defence budget, which is the fifth largest in the world, is about £35 billion. It's 2% of GDP. We fulfil our NATO commitment. But you know something? Our army cannot even fill Wembley Stadium. The shortage is so bad. It is the naval ships we have in the House of Lords regularly, Admiral West saying our Navy is not capable. We don't have the capability anymore. So where are we going to be able to afford to invest in national service, which costs billions? And I think we should listen to what General Sir Richard Barrons, a very senior general, he had this to say.
They're never going to say publicly, or to themselves, or to their enemies, or to their allies, that we're broken. But when they fly, sail, or deploy on the land, and they look at their equipment, they look at their sustainability, they look at the shortfalls in their training, and they look at their allies, they know they are not fit for purpose.
And you know, and I think this is negligent of a government, because the number one priority of a government is the security of its citizens. And OK, just to your point, countries that do have national service to this day, and Singapore is one of them, it works. I mean, there's somebody in Singapore who came out of national service and he said, I think national service is also a wonderful tool for a country to bring her people of different races and religions together, which Singapore is made up of. And to sum it up, if I had to do it again, I happily would. So it does work.
But Karen, would it fill? I mean, would national service then serve as a pipeline to fill the gap, the depletion in the ranks? I think the same army person we saw on screen said that the army was a hologram of its former self and 20 years out of date.
But if you read what a former Army Chief of Staff quoted this week, the army is 20 years out of date, lacking air defences, unmanned drones, and cyber warfare capabilities. You're not going to get that from national service.
Yeah. But if these people stayed within the ranks, then at least you would start
but you're not
filling
going to get that
the gaps.
from national service. I mean,
Why not? Why not? Are the armies where they have national service already in existence, are they up to strength?
There are very few countries in the world that have national service. And I tell you, one is the unaffordability of it. That is a sad reality. Secondly, we can't even at the moment recruit the reserves that we need. And we're now depending on reserves, and that's an oxymoron. Reserves are meant to be reserves. We're relying on reserves now as full-time troops. So we're in a very serious situation here.
4,000.
Yeah, I thought it was only a 4,000 shortfall. But you said our army wouldn't fill Wembley Stadium. Does it need to?
Absolutely. You need... every soldier will say, however much technology you have, you need basic capability of boots on the ground. A question was asked in Parliament, can we even field 2 brigades?
But to counter what threat?
A division is the smallest form of an army. The government minister couldn't even answer if we could field 2 full brigades, and that to me is really worrying.
No, but you answer the question. The answer to the question is, what is the threat?
Yeah, what threat?
I mean, you could argue that actually we wouldn't have ended up in Iraq, which was one of the great disasters of our time, if we hadn't had the army we had.
What about Afghanistan? We would have gone into Afghanistan, even despite having only, whatever, 78,000.
We'd have had far fewer troops.
But I mean, in the question in terms of what is the modern-day threat, and does it require... Because if I think of my brothers, or my sister for that matter, or, you know, someone rocking up and saying they're off to join the army and go and fight somewhere, I would be concerned for their safety and then some. Yes. So I'm intrigued to know why you're directly linking the safety of our country with the number of boots on the ground. To counter what threat?
Because there is there's a critical mass. 2, the threats are so unknown. Who would have predicted so many of the threats that have taken place? And do you know, since the Second World War, there is only 1 year when the British Armed Forces have not actually seen active service around the world, whether it's Sierra Leone, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Afghanistan,
whatever.
And also, as Britain, we're a global power. We've got great soft power, but soft power is useless without the hard power, and the hard power enables us to do a great deal on the global stage.
But a lot of people would argue we shouldn't be getting involved in all those conflicts on the global stage.
That's a different... I mean, it's an interesting fact that we have more hairdressers in this country, 185,000, than we do soldiers. We have 82,000 soldiers, 35,000 RAF men and 30,000 Navy men. And they're about to abolish the only 2 ships. What do they call them? Amphibious? I don't know what they're called.
We haven't had aircraft carriers for a decade. Can you imagine?
But don't you think national service serves another purpose?
Has it made any
Yes, I do.
Hang on, it serves another purpose too, in the sense that I think we're breeding a nation of young people who don't have respect for authority, whether it be
now this comes down to it. This is your
well,
argument.
let me finish. Whether they have respect for their parents, for their teachers, for their employers, and you know, now we live in this. It's like it's a fast-moving consumer society. Instant gratification. Kids don't understand about respect.
And also, Carol, not that I want us to stray into you know, private grief again, but if our younger generation, aged, let's say, 18 to 24, did do national service, we might find that our young British people were more prepared to get up in dawn to pick turnips in the sleet,
of course,
which is what we're going to need them to do when everyone else who does it goes back.
But you know how many people there are? You know the number of people we're talking about? We're talking about 650,000 people. If we were to get them all to go into the army, not all would, by the way, because there are people for many reasons who don't have to do national service. But the sheer cost of it, how much we may want to do it, will be seriously unaffordable, unfortunately.
Of the people here, I was probably the closest to national service.
Was it abolished in 1964?
It was my brother, who is 6 years older than me, was the first year who didn't have to do it. But kids from our street went to do it. I mean, it was a joke. I mean, I've got to tell you.
Why?
Well, because... Well, the scams that went on to get out were unbelievable. I mean, people would take scrubbing brushes and scrub themselves just before the medicals, so they went in. I mean, a terrible thing. You want a professional army. You don't want, honestly, people who are dragged off the streets.
You don't have to do it. It's only for a year. You only go in for a year.
Sure, but that's why
you can learn other skills while you're there.
Your argument is a different one. Yours isn't about the lack of capability in the army. Your argument is it's good for people.
But I think it might well be.
But I'm afraid that's a world that's gone. They're not.
Discipline has gone.
People aren't going to be told by those up there that it's good for them to do.
Can I just pick up on this? Can I just say, on this point, what you're just saying, people don't appreciate enough former services people
That's true.
are so brilliant. The leadership skills that they lead, the teamwork skills that they learn.
Exactly.
To apply that in the civil world,
Yeah.
there are many things like skill force. They're great,
But
great schemes.
But they
and-
weren't
and they're
conscripts.
brilliant. And
They weren't conscripts. Look, Vietnam, the Vietnam War, I thought, saw the end of conscripts because what they discovered in Vietnam was they all turned up in Vietnam and smoked dope for 2 years, you know, because conscript armies are not effective. You want trained armies. As I said, I just read you out these quotes. The things you need are not necessarily more people. Now, every chief of staff of any of the armed forces ever has always said, we need more. They have always
But
said
look,
that.
there's a limit to what we've shrunk to. And if you talk to any senior general, former chiefs of the army,
Sure.
they will all say
And
this is very negligent
But
where we're at the
are
moment.
they saying we can't do the sort of warfare we used to do? Because that, your point, that might
They
be
can't.
a good
They're
idea.
literally
That
saying,
might
you
be a
heard
good
General
idea.
Barrett, who's an expert,
You know what, can we
saying
just,
that.
can we,
Can I just put a fact in before we go?
Precisely that.
Just
No,
a thing.
Carol, sorry, we've got to hear from what Sir Stuart Peach actually did.
The army's big enough to do all the tasks that we give it. And I would be absolutely wrong not to say we don't have an issue with recruiting. We are 4,000 below. That's a matter of public record, and we're doing all we can to improve the offer and to make sure that people understand the opportunities presented by service.
Jolly good advert, I would say, for young people to join the army, even if we can't, as Carol and I would like to introduce national conscription into a national
No,
service.
no,
But you just said it's all gone. It hasn't all gone. There's a YouGov poll this year that said 47% support reintroducing national service.
I
So
bet
people
they're not the
want it.
people you're introducing.
And I know Air Chief Marshal Stuart Peach. He's a wonderful leader. He has to say what he's just said. You talk to any other former chief of the defence staff or former chiefs of any of our forces, and they will say, we've cut it too much now. We need more troops.